Hi class, in the last video I talked about the internet and how it's changed public relations and marketing. And in this video I want to talk about the result of that. A somewhat new strategy that PR and marketing professionals use online in order to gain audiences. Now, not everybody uses this. This is one approach to marketing and positioning and spreading messages, PR messages online, but I want to use it in this class as a framework for what you're going to be designing, so that when you design, you're not just looking at colors and typefaces, but you're having to decide what the content of the design is, and you're making a connection between the purpose of what you're designing and the content inside of it, and then how the visuals help explain the content. So let's talk about one possible solution to the PR and marketing problem on the web: content strategy. So in the last video I talked about three principles that guide public relations on the web: authenticity, information, and engagement. And what we're really talking about is doing these things, providing information and authenticity and garnering engagement with the right audience in the right channel at the right time. So in this class you're going to learn how to select and design content for the right audience in the right channel at the right time. And how do we offer online on authenticity, information, and engagement? Well, I talked about in the last video the old mass media models, and I said, with traditional PR, you're talking about connecting with the media and having them discuss your message, using broadcast media, print media. Online, the strategy is to offer engagement and information and show us authenticity there with content, and only advertising sometimes, but mostly content. So that's what content strategy is all about. It's about offering content that markets our client, our corporation, us, or sends the PR message that we want to send and helps build a relationship between people and our brand. So online, we can do that with content. Yes, advertising, but as I'm sure you all know, advertising online, it's really hit or miss. Advertising online still relies a lot on that interruption model where you get pop-up ads, you get advertisements on the side of websites. There's a lot of research showing that those don't work very well. So online, we try to engage people with content, and that means thinking like a journalist. That means becoming a publisher. That means you're no longer just a PR person trying to get a message out, but you have to craft content that gets the message out. And that content has to have information that your buyers want and need. It has to engage them, and it has to appear authentic. So you're sort of taking on the role of a publisher in the online web world when you're doing PR online. And how do we offer authentic content online? Well, I'll talk about how we do that with content strategy in a minute, but here's why we do that. Authentic content creates trust, and it helps us explain our brand uniqueness. So what do we have? What does our brand offer? Our brand advantage. What does our brand offer that other brands don't offer? We can use authentic content to show that by presenting ourselves as having a personality and a brand style and a brand story. We can show what our unique brand promise is, what our brand advantage is, and we can sort of create this trust between ourselves and the buyer. Informative content is going to create loyalty and a friendly relationship. So we're giving people information that is helpful to them in their lives, and that is how you make friends, right? You make friends in real life by sort of helping each other out. You plan things and you invite them to it. You take them out to dinner. You do the same thing online with informative content. You give people information that they need to form a friendly relationship, so they become to see you as someone who has something that will help them. And then engaging content is going to get people thinking and talking about you. So not only is the content helpful for them, but it's something that they're so interested in, that's so helpful, that hopefully they'll want to engage back with you, and then you'll have an engagement between your buyers and your brand, which of course can spur loyalty. So this is why we focus on these three aspects. Now, you read in your textbook this week that content strategy also is about solving buyers' problems. When you're planning for content online, when you get to that information and you're sort of like, well, what information do we put? You're thinking like a publisher, and you're thinking, okay, what kind of content do I put on my site, do I put online to position our brand as having a good relationship with people and offering something? Well, you have to figure out who your buyers are and what their problems are, and then solve their problems with your brand. So I'm going to use an example, Trulia, throughout the course. Trulia is a app that you can download on your mobile device that will show you, and it's a website, a website too, that it's basically real estate. It will show you houses. You can see pictures of houses that are for sale. It's just listings, real estate listings. But what's neat about it is it's an app. You know, you can be walking down the street and see a house that's for sale and open the app and it'll know where you are and show you the house right in front of you, and you can see pictures of the inside. It's really neat. But what Trulia does that is really great is they have a really good content strategy system. They publish a lot of great content. They understand their buyers. People who are buying a house, they know those people really well and they solve their problems. So if you're buying a house, you have problems like, how am I going to get a mortgage? I don't know anything about mortgages. How do I learn about mortgages? Should I even buy a house? Maybe it's better if I rent. How do I know how much house I can afford? How do I know if the house is, you know, well made? You have lots of concerns, but we can find what those concerns are. We can survey people who are buying houses and see what their concerns are and then solve their problems. And that's what Trulia does. They have multiple blogs on which they solve buyers' problems. They offer advice on how to buy a house. They offer advice on how to get a mortgage. They offer advice on how to tell if the house is a lemon or not. And this sort of solving problems with that content shows authenticity because it shows that you care. It shows you're helping. It shows that you have a specialized knowledge that others don't have. It gives the user the information they need. This makes you look like you're smart. You know what's going on in your field. You're the industry leaders. You're thought leaders. You're the people to go to if the buyer has a question. And this also creates engagement. And this is the idea that people sort of think, well, you know what? Trulia knows what's going on. I'm gonna get help from them. I want to talk more with them about how they can help me. I'm gonna pass on their helpful advice. I'm going to ask them questions on Twitter. So Trulia uses content to show authenticity, to provide information, to position themselves as thought leaders, and to create engagement with their audiences. And not everyone who reads their blogs is going to use Trulia, is going to, you know, get a realtor through there or do anything with Trulia that's going to make Trulia money, but they're forming a brand relationship. So even if the person doesn't end up giving any money to Trulia or doing anything that generates revenue for Trulia, they might get other people involved. They create this positive buzz around Trulia so that Trulia becomes like the go-to real estate app. So using content, it's not just about getting the buyers to buy something. It's about forming a relationship with them in the hopes that they'll eventually buy something or they'll get others interested in buying something. At the very least, they're going to create positive buzz around your company. So we're going to solve buyers' problems with content strategy, which means usually digital content. And we manage digital content with strategy. So content strategy, content, that's what we give to help buyers solve their problem that positions us as authentic, information giving, and engaging. Strategy is how we go about deciding what that content is. So content strategy is a way of thinking about what your company publishes online. It's a communications field that focuses on web communication, and your textbook calls it the key to creating a successful web presence. It determines really what your company publishes online to engage and inform authentically. So the content strategy is everyone in the PR group, marketing group, comes together and figures out what's our strategy here. What kind of content do we need? Who are our buyers? That's content strategy. So let's look at an example of a piece of content from a company that engages in content strategy. This is a blog post from Trulia, which I just talked about, top 7 reasons you might love renting. Now, this might sound counterintuitive. Why is a real estate listing company talking about renting? Well, they do have a renting service where you can see places for rent in the area using Trulia. But what they're doing here is they're solving buyers' problems. If you're looking at houses, you're kind of trying to decide, do I want to buy a house? Should I keep renting? Is the economy good enough for me to buy a house? Would it be a mistake to buy one? Is it a mistake to rent? And so Trulia offers all this content that solves the buyer's problem. So one of the buyer's problems, should I even buy a house? Trulia is constantly publishing content that helps people solve that problem. And therefore, Trulia becomes seen as this company that has a lot of experts on staff that really knows the market and can help you. Here's another example. This is from a site called weareiu.com, and I hate to use it as an example because it's an IU site. Ball State for the win. But We Are IU is actually a really great website. It's totally a content strategy site. It's basically a blog where current IU students blog about IU. And you think, who would read a blog about IU except people who go there? Well, the audience for We Are IU is really incoming students and potential students. This is one post from that site. No 8 a.m.s or Friday classes, how I achieved the perfect schedule. This was my schedule first semester of my freshman year. And then this woman who posts, I think she's a sophomore at IU, she gives, I think it's 5 or 10 pieces of advice on how to get the perfect schedule. And she shows her first semester freshman schedule. Now, when you were in high school and you were looking for a college, don't you think this would have been really helpful to you? The buyer problem here is really, I need help. When you're in high school and you're thinking about college, it's really, really overwhelming. There's so many things to think about. When you commit to a college, you don't know how to schedule. You go to orientation, they try explaining to you, it makes no sense. You just hope it works out. And IU is battling that and solving users or buyers' problems by offering all of this content. So someone who is looking at colleges, who stumbles across this content online, imagine you're just on Google and you type in how to get a perfect schedule. This might come up. You learn from this woman at IU how to get a good freshman year schedule. Even if you don't go to IU, this fosters goodwill between you and IU, and maybe you'll suggest IU to someone else later. So this is a piece of content from a content strategy initiative. It's about solving buyers' problems. You'll notice if you go to the We Are IU and you look up this blog post, you'll notice it's not an ad for IU. All of the suggestions are not IU-centric. They can be used at any college. And this sounds counterintuitive. Why are we suggesting, why are we solving buyers' problems if the answer is not always to buy our product or come to our university or sign up for our services? Well, a lot of times people will, but it's really about fostering that goodwill, being seen as a leader in your field, which this certainly makes IU look like a leader. They're reaching out to students and helping them and offering advice that works. But this content is all about solving problems because you're trying to get that brand relationship and you're hoping eventually it will turn into a sale. It will turn into some sort of measurable goal for you, measurable positive for you. But even if it doesn't, at least it's fostering that goodwill. And online, as I spoke about in last week's videos, people just aren't interested in advertising. They skip advertising. So if you're constantly trying to drill in, go to IU, go to IU, go to IU, people see it as an ad and they're not interested in it. It's not engaging to them. It's not authentic. This is much more authentic, much more engaging. People know that someone at IU wrote this, so there is a chance in here for the woman who wrote it to sort of mention, oh, by the way, if you go to IU, we'll help you out with your first year semester planning, or we'll give you these perks. But it's mostly help, not mostly an ad. I have a friend who works in content strategy and social media for a company here in Indianapolis, and when they do content for their clients, especially social media content, they try to have a mix of about 70% not advertising and branded content and 30% advertising and branded content. So 70% of what they're putting out is stuff like this, stuff that's not directly advertising, but rather fostering goodwill. Okay, let's talk about what content strategists do. A content strategist is a person who engages in content strategy. They plan for the creation, publication, and governance of useful, usable content that's authentic, information-giving, and engaging. Content strategists figure out the purpose of content piece by piece and create content that fulfills that purpose. So they decide, what do we need to do? Do we need content that sells? Do we need content that engages? Do we need content that entertains? Or do we need a mix of these things? And if so, in what proportion? Content strategists also advocate for content considerations at every step of the the design process. So your first assignment in this class is going to be to make a newsletter. You're not just going to grab any article and shove it into the newsletter. You have to think about what content is appropriate for that newsletter. So content strategists typically are working as part of an organization, and they'll have to work with designers to help the designer understand what content should go in the newsletter, what content should go on the website, and advocating for this content being important and not just plastering all the designs, all the newsletters, all the websites with ads. Content strategists define the key themes and messages of content, recommended topics for content, the purpose, as I just discussed, of all the content. And these last three we're not going to deal with as much, but content strategists also figure out metadata frameworks and related content attributes. Metadata is data about data, and you may know metadata from your pictures. When you take a picture on your iPhone, it has metadata. If you open that picture in different applications, you can see the date that it was taken. You can see the time it was taken. You can sometimes see the location it was taken. You can see what kind of camera it was taken with. That's all metadata, data about data. So the picture is a piece of data, and you have data that describes the picture, location, date, etc. Online, you want your content to have data. So if you go back to that Trulia blog post, there's going to be some data that goes with this. You would create tags. You would tag this as, advice, renting, benefits of renting, financial benefits of renting, and that will help people find that content and understand what it is. Search engine optimization we're really not going to cover in this class, but content strategists often take care of that. And content strategists consider the implications of the strategic recommendations that they're making on content creation, publication, and governance. That just means the content strategist has to figure out who's going to write the content, where are we going to get it, and what does this mean? Do we need to hire more people? And so on. So how do content strategists do all that? Well, there is a process which you read about in your textbook this week. Step 1, research. Always start with research. You have to research your business goals and your users. So what do you want to do with the content? Are you trying to make more money? Are you trying to get more donations? Are you trying to get more people to apply to your university? Are you trying to get more people to sign up for your event? What is the content supposed to do? And then what are the users? Who are the users and what do they do? Most people are probably not your audience. You probably have a pretty specific audience. IU, they have that weareiu.com. Their audience is not just high school people, but a certain kind of high school person. Most of their students are from the Midwest, so they want to create content that appeals to Midwesterners. Many of their students, or the majority of their students, are female, so they want to make sure that they're getting content that appeals to females, unless they're trying to get more males in the program, in which case they want to appeal to the males. So you have to figure out who your users are and how they think and what their problems are. So you always research that first. Then you're going to create what's called personas, which you'll read about in your textbook, which are archetypes of key publics or audiences. So you take everything you know about your audience, and instead of just making charts and graphs that sort of describe them, you create a fictional person and you tell their story, and that describes your typical buyer. So instead of saying, our typical buyer is demographically 48 years old, lives in the suburbs. No, you make Nancy Crone and you give her an age. She's 48 and she lives in this particular suburb and she has this many kids, and you take that data you have about users and you turn it into this rich story of a person, and that helps you understand them better and make content that appeals to them better. It's easier to write content for a single person than it is to write content for a demographic. Step 3, you're going to create content strategy goals. So what are you trying to do with your content? Step 4, develop the messaging, topics, voice, and tone. Step 5, plan for the creation of or procurement of content that accomplishes the goal. And step 6, ensures all the publications meet the business goals, the user goals, and the content strategy goals. Now, you're not actually going to write content strategy in this class. Your next class after this, 385, is strategic. Or you have, actually, I think you have 2 strategic communications classes after this. You have strategic design and writing, and then you have campaigns. And you're going to learn more about this in those classes, but I want to introduce it now because it goes hand in hand with design. So this process I just went through, this is called the user-centered design process. User-centered design is any approach to a design in which you start by researching users and then you try your stuff out on users. So if you're making content, you ask users to look at it and you ask them what they think. You're trying to give users what they want or need, not what you want to give them. So when you're writing content, you're not writing the content that you think is fun to write. You're writing the content that you think the buyer needs, that solves the buyer's problem. So in your first assignment, when you create a newsletter, you're not going to pick content just because it fits and it's easy for you to make fit. Or you're not going to pick content that you like. You're going to pick content that's appropriate for whoever's getting the newsletter. And that's going to be a component of all of your grades in this course is, did you choose the correct kind of content for what you designed? And the user-centered design process is not specific to content strategy. I teach it in my web design classes. I teach it in my product classes. I teach it in, I actually think I might teach it in every class that I teach. Well, I have a social media class that I don't teach it in. But user-centered design is anytime you make something and you look at users first. So content strategy, the first thing you do is figure out, who is this for? And let's look at what this content strategy planning looks like. I talked about what strategists do. I talked about the steps. I want to show you what the output of that is. Once you go through all those steps, what do you end up with? What does that look like? So let's look at the strategy document that I put together for this class. In this class, you're working with digital medium labs to develop materials that employ their content strategy. Each design that you create should match their strategy and help them accomplish the goals of the strategy. So every time you design, you'll need to select or rewrite their current content to achieve the strategy. And you should use the messages, topics, personas, etc. from the strategy. So let's take a look at the strategy. Okay, to start with, you have 4 personas. These are your buyers. So digital medium labs, these are the 4 types of audiences they've identified as being potential audiences for achieving their business goal, which in this case is to get high quality clients. So here's our first, the entrepreneur. That's spelled wrong. You can sort of see this is a story about a person. This isn't just a group of people. This is Susan Corcoran, and she works at her own marketing consultancy business. She reads Fast Company and Inc. magazine. She spends a lot of time worrying about getting funding for her business. She feels too busy all the time. She thinks there's too many demands on her time, and she thinks that she's going to go far in life as long as she can maintain a high quality business. This is another persona, the second persona, the ideas person. This isn't just, hey, there's people who have ideas. This is Dan Moore. He's an account supervisor. He works at national tier marketing agencies. So he works at places that are very high quality. He has an idea that he thinks is going to revolutionize the marketing industry. He's a weekend warrior. He gets stressed on the job. He doesn't have a lot of practical skills. Doesn't know much about the tech industry. Doesn't know a lot about business. Doesn't have the technical skills he needs to make his idea a reality, but he really believes in his idea. I'm not going to show the other 2, but I want you to get a sense of personas, what they are. You create the story of a single person that embodies your audience, the demographics of your audience, who they are and what they do. All right, let's look at the core strategy for the digital medium labs that you're going to be working with in this class. There's a description of who they are. A small Indianapolis-based programming outfit. They build web apps, mobile apps, and APIs for tech startups in the Midwest. If you don't know what those things are, you need to look them up. When you graduate, I think I said this in the last video, when you graduate, you're going to do PR for an organization, and you're going to have to learn about that organization. There's a former student who works as in social media in Indianapolis for tech, and she said, she came to my in-person class and she told them that she really didn't know a lot about tech. She had to learn everything about these companies when they became clients. That's just how it is, and I've had similar experiences. You just have to learn about the field as you go. So if you are scared by these technological terms, look them up or ask me. Digital Medium Labs not only programs these products, but they're consultants. So if you don't know about the best way of making a digital product. If you just wake up one day and you're like, I have a great idea for an app, and you don't know anything about how you make that, they'll walk you through it. So they'll give you consulting. They'll walk you through how that works. They have 8 employees, which I've listed here. Here's what they're trying to do. Here's what they want to achieve. They want to bring in more high-paying and high-quality startup clients into partnerships. So this is their goal. They want to get more clout in the startup scene and get higher-paying work. So they want startups to come work with them, startups that have a lot of money with good ideas. Here's what they want to be. They want content products. They want a website. They want a blog that coaches startups on how to design and develop products. They want email newsletters. They want print newsletters, so on and so forth. How are they going to do that? Well, you guys, a team of students, is going to receive their content and develop the needed content products. So you're going to create a blog. You're going to create a website. You're going to create an email newsletter, a print newsletter, and then you're actually not going to deal with these because we can't fit that into an entire class. So you're just going to do the first half. Here's the core strategy statement. Here's what they're trying to do with their website. There's the annotations. Here's their audiences. These link to the personas. And very, very importantly, here's their messaging. Here's what they want people to believe about their organization. So they want entrepreneurs who they're trying to get on board with their company to believe that they're going to execute that entrepreneurial vision to the same standard that the entrepreneur, him or herself, would, resulting in a product that's going to reach its full earning potential. In layman's terms, they want the entrepreneur to believe that we're going to make exactly what you want and it's going to make you a ton of money. Number 2, they want the entrepreneur to believe that Digital Medium Labs is going to help them develop a strong strategy that it's going to stick to. So the entrepreneur will always know what they're up to and why. So you can read through these on your own in your own time, but these are the messages that you're going to make sure all the content you use in this class is supporting. So if you make a newsletter for the ideas person, it has to say these things or explain these things or elicit these things from the content. You have to have content that makes it sound like the Digital Medium Labs client is going to understand their vision and build their vision into this great experience. Here are some potential topics for each audience, and then voice and tone and sources, which I actually still have to fill in. But you need to read this on your own time. This is the strategy that you're going to stick to. So you're going to consult this over and over again. When you create a newsletter, you're going to have to come in here and figure out, okay, which of these personas is this newsletter for? And then what kind of topics has Digital Medium Labs told me I need to discuss for that person? And then how am I going to fit that into the newsletter? So this is a document that's going to guide your work in this class. And you're going to have classes later in the major where you're going to actually make something like this. You're going to explain strategy and then create tactics. Here, it's already done for you, and your challenge is going to be making it happen with your designs and your content selection. So that's everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I will let you go. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to send them my way. You can email them to me or you can just post them right on this video, and I will answer them as soon as I can.